Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. Yesterday evening, Yogendra Yadav and Prashant Bhushan were sacked from the Political Affairs Committee of the Aam Aadmi Party. This was the culmination of weeks of estrangement between the two of them and Arvind Kejriwal. Both men have questioned Arvind's leadership. Yogendra Yadav called him a supremo. Prashant Bhushan has suggested Kejriwal thinks he's always right. In part 2 tonight, we present the first interview with Prashant Bhushan after his sacking from the PAC. But first, the debate over the Nirbhaya film made by the BBC. The government has banned its broadcast in India, but the BBC broadcast it yesterday night, and the film is now available on YouTube. So in part 1, we tackle the key issue at the heart of this controversy. Is the banning of this film justified, or is it both illiberal and undemocratic, as well as an attempt to deny a terrible reality about India? Joining in a moment to justify the ban is the chairperson of the National Commission for Women, Lalita Kumaramangalam. And to speak against the ban and invite every Indian to see the documentary is the well-known author, columnist and former editor, Shobha De. Lalita Kumaramangalam, you've publicly said that the documentary India's Daughter about the Nirbhaya rape case should be banned in India and not allowed to be seen. Have you seen the documentary and found it offensive, or are you making that demand on some other basis?
No, I have seen the documentary. I saw it today. And I still feel the same way as I did when I spoke about it when I hadn't seen it yesterday and the day before that. I feel very strongly, Karan, that it should just not be banned only in India but across the world, because it presents, according to me, a very skewed picture of what reality is in India. And if you want and give me some time, I can elucidate. The first thing, of course, is that it presents India's women across the board as merely victims who possibly need the, do-gooders of the so-called more developed or Western, for want of a better word, countries. And I think it's very unfair to the fact that it's played up so much, everything that surrounds the so-called the rapists, the perpetrators of that horrible, violent crime.
Okay.
I don't understand why they've given even the time of day to either those equally, in some ways, culpable lawyers who defended the victims.
Can I come in at that point?
Continue to sort of.
Can I come in at that point? The first argument you're making is that it portrays India as a nation represented by horrific, brutal, monstrous rapists. But the sad truth. And women who are merely victims. But the sad truth,
in this case, yes,
let me put the point across to you. The sad truth that you cannot deny, Ms. Kumaramangalam, is that this documentary isn't simply revealing the view of a single rapist and the view of those defending lawyers. It's reflecting a state of mind and an attitude to women, which is unfortunately shared not just by tens of millions, but possibly even hundreds of millions of Indian men. That's the sad reality, which by trying to ban the film, you are actually denying. It's a head-in-the-ground attitude that at the end of the day is an escape from reality.
I'm not denying that attitude. What I am trying to say is that that is not the only type of man in India, Karan. We have a lot of very good, decent men who were equally out on the streets after this terrible accident, or after this terrible heinous crime that was committed on 16 December, on the streets, standing shoulder to shoulder with Indian women.
And forgive me,
it's a very skewed picture of this country.
It's not a skewed picture.
Please let me finish this, Karan, one sec. Let's not forget that rape exists all over the world. It doesn't have only to do with mindset, It's about power.
Absolutely.
It's about violence and it's about control, which is exactly what comes out.
But just a moment, once again, you're saying, forgive me, I'm interrupting you. I'm interrupting you because I want to respond to the point you made, that you suggest it's ignoring the fact that there are many, many good men who are abhorrent about rape and who were out protesting. But it doesn't ignore that. It shows this. No, let me finish. Let me finish. This documentary, which I too have seen, shows millions of Indians protesting. It praises them. In fact, the lady who made the documentary has gone public to say that the reason she made it is because she was so impressed by the manner in which young Indians, men included, had come out to protest. So it doesn't exclude it. It doesn't suggest there's only one type of Indian man. That is a faulty conclusion that you are coming to.
No, Karan, think of the amount of time and space that was given to the perpetrators and their lawyers, etc. And what is, the amount of time, not saying the time given to Nirbhaya's parents was wrong, because in a way I feel it's a good thing, because at least in India there will again be some sort of sympathy for girls who have to suffer this sort of indignity, as was suggested by the guy, the rapist, who claims he wasn't the rapist, of course.
Forgive me, I'm interrupting you again. I'm interrupting you again because you're talking about the question, look at the amount of time given to the rapist, as opposed to, I presume, the other side. Actually, forgive me. Let me finish. I'm afraid you're wrong again, because I've seen the documentary like you, and the other side has an awful lot of time. There are many people other than Nirbhaya's parents who speak at great length and portray a very different image and vision of Indian manhood. So it's not that it's unbalanced. Both views of Indian manhood are there, the reprehensible one as well as the one you applaud and uphold.
No, where does anybody really show any sort of different picture of Indian manhood? But that's not the only point I want to make. I also want to make the fact, that the Indian woman is portrayed merely as a victim and merely as somebody's daughter, sister, mother, etc. Indian women are not merely anything but women. Okay, we are very strong. What is ignored is Nirbhaya's courage.
Well, no, it's not. No, it's not. No, forgive me. The documentary applauds her courage. No, you're wrong. I'm interrupting you again because you're conveying a wrong impression to an audience that hasn't seen this film, and it's not fair that you should. The documentary applauds her courage. The commentary applauds her courage. No, you're wrong. The documentary applauds her courage. The commentary applauds her courage. There are people there who speak and applaud her courage.
The rapist has suggested that because she fought back, she was hurt so badly. And this is what the rapist actually does say.
But
that if she had just allowed herself to be raped, we wouldn't have hurt her so badly.
No, just a moment.
And if the boy hadn't,
that is the purpose of the documentary.
Saying, who are you to ask me any questions?
That is the purpose of the documentary. The purpose of the documentary is to reveal that abhorrent viewpoint. You're objecting to the viewpoint.
Karen, the purpose of the documentary is to raise funds for conducting some sort of anti-violence, pro-gender and pro-women's empowerment campaign in India. This is what has not been publicized at all in the publicity shots that have, or the publicity work that has gone into
Just a moment. You're coming very close to being libelous. I'm going to ask you to pause and think again. You are casting aspersions on the producer of the film, and I don't think you have any evidence to back it up.
This film has casted aspersions on Indian men, on Indian women, and has almost portrayed India as merely a country where women are raped and violated.
I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's true. I think that's wrong.
Women. That's the impression I got when I saw it.
Let me quote to you Nirbhaya's parents. Both of them have publicly said that they believe this documentary should be screened. Writing in the Economic Times this morning, her father says it holds up a mirror to Indian society. Her mother says it shows the monstrous attitude of the rapist. If her parents want it to be shown, why are you objecting?
Karan, because there are many, and with all due sympathy and empathy to Nirbhaya's family, they are absolutely justified in having their own opinions. These are not the only girl, this is not the only girl who was raped either in India or anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. Rape exists all over the world, and at the risk of sounding callous, which I don't mean to be at all, I feel very strongly about any violence against any woman anywhere in the world, but more specifically in my own country. And any act of violence really shames me. I have to admit that, even on national television, because I'm here talking as an Indian woman.
Absolutely.
Not merely as the chairperson of the NCW.
Can I put something to you?
Yeah.
On television,
Yes, of course.
Leslie Adwin, the producer of this documentary, has said that what prompted her to make this was the question, what is it that drives men who behave like monsters to rape in this brutal, inexplicable way, to actually rip out the kidneys and the intestines of their victim? What drives them to do it? That's why she interviewed Mukesh.
That's exactly what I said.
Forgive me, let me finish. Let me finish. You have to let me finish. It's not fair. It's not fair that you should not let the question finish. That's why she interviewed Mukesh. That's why she carried his gruesome testimony about what he did. That's why she showed his mental thinking, so that we people could come to some understanding of the fact that this man is a monster. Therefore, it is justified to reveal his thinking.
Can I now say something? Can I now say something? Karan, are you trying to tell me that people did not know that men like this were monsters before this film was made? Or that there are many more monsters like this lurking in the darkness of not just Indian society but anywhere in the world? Are you telling me that the making of this film is going to really help the whole world, or the people who have been raped or their families, not to know that these are not just monsters? They are the creatures that I don't know what words to use about them. This film is not the only thing that's brought this to light.
Can I answer that question?
Everybody knows it.
Can I answer that question?
Every person who was out on the street after Nirbhaya incident knows it.
Can I answer that question for you?
This film,
let me answer that question. Let me Lalita Kumaramangalam answer that question for you. I'm going to quote Javed Akhtar. I'm going to quote Anu Aga, two of the most respected independent members of our Rajya Sabha. Javed Akhtar in Parliament yesterday forcefully argued that it was a good thing that this documentary had been made. It was essential that the Indian people should see it because, and I'm quoting him, it will permit millions of Indians to realize that when they think a woman is to blame for rape, the way she dresses is to blame, the way she behaves is to blame, they are thinking like rapists. He says they need to realize that that thought is a thought like the rapist. Let them see and realize, and let that shock them. That's why it needs to be made. Answer Javed Akhtar.
But Karan, you, the side, or rather, the people who are now advocating saying that the film must be shown and who are talking about freedom of speech, etc., you're almost contradicting yourselves. On the one hand, you say that people will realize that when they talk such nonsense, which should not be, according to me, it's much worse than mere nonsense, they are merely reflecting, or like in many ways reiterating what these rapists say.
I'm actually
on the other hand,
re-emphasizing the point
what about
that the viewpoint of many men is reflective of the viewpoint of the rapist, and they need to realize it, and this is one way of realizing it.
Karan, you're not letting me finish. Karan, you're not letting me finish. What about the equal number of men in this country who may well feel that, look, our stand is vindicated.
Okay.
What is so wrong about it? Two lawyers are talking about it, and lawyers are supposed to be very learned people in this country,
who was late joining us, has arrived. Let me bring her in. All I'll point out is, I wish it was the case that it is an equal number of men who think the opposite way. I really do dispute it, but I'll come back to you in a moment's time. Shobha De, your position is the exact opposite of Lalita Kumaramangalam. She believes that this documentary shouldn't just be banned in India, it shouldn't be shown anywhere in the world. You take the opposite position. You've written in an article, and I'm quoting, that India's daughter must be compulsory viewing in schools, colleges and government offices. Why do you say that?
I think it's very essential not to play ostrich at a time like this, Karan. We cannot push the issue under the carpet. We cannot pretend the problem doesn't exist. Why are we so afraid? Why are we running away from the truth? This is exactly how sick our society is. This is the mindset of a lot of people out there. What we are doing is, unlike the argument that we are glorifying the rapist, no, we are not. We're exposing the mind of a rapist, for heaven's sake. Let everybody open their eyes, open their ears, and see for themselves what level of depravity we have sunk to.
Can I interrupt
what
you there?
he's saying is also something that a lot of other men think and say.
Shobha De, let me interrupt you there. I want to put the opposite view to you because it's important. You should answer it and counter it. One argument for banning the film is not that it glorifies a rapist, but that it provides a platform to a rapist. And in doing so, it gives him an opportunity. Let me finish. In doing so, in giving him that platform, it provides him an opportunity to explain and contextualize his behavior. Thus, it gives him an opportunity to suggest his behavior is explicable and not simply beyond comprehension. And therefore, it allows the rapist to be reflected in a better or improved light. That's the argument from the other side. How do you counter it?
I'm sorry,
perhaps not better or improved, but in a more humane light.
Let her answer.
Any right-thinking person will not agree to such the absurdity of those comments. They will be able to see that the rapist, what he's saying is a sick man who's ranting on, justifying despicable behavior, and in no way can any intelligent person imagine that that is the way of justifying or explaining his conduct. In fact, he's exposing himself. There's the counter argument that what he's saying is so inflammatory, it's so incriminatory that he can actually end up in many ways negatively impacting his own mercy petition.
In fact, can I stop you a moment? Can I stop you a moment? Can I stop you a moment? NDTV has received a Shobhade, let me stop you a moment. Let me stop you. Shobhade, pause. I want to underline a point you're making. Shobhade, pause. Shobhade,
to explain
Shobhade, listen to me for a moment. I want to Shobhade,
religious heads, sadhvis, godmen, maulanas who are given a platform, criminals who are given a platform, corrupt cricket officials who are given platform, corrupt cricketers who are given a platform to talk about what they're accused of. So why not this man?
Okay.
And why
Shobhade, pause and take a breath. Shobhade, pause and take a breath. Don't make this a ramble. I need to ask you questions.
We should be ashamed that this is happening in the first place.
Shobhade,
We shouldn't be embarrassed about what the world will think of us. The world already knows what's going on, not just in India, but
nobody is embarrassed. I think you're trying to put words into my mouth. Nobody is embarrassed.
Shobhade, you have to pause. This is not a Shobhade. This is not a monologue. It's an answer to a question. You can't carry on and on. You have to pause. I want this to be a debate. Shobhade, the other point being made, and I'd like you to answer it succinctly, please, because we're short of time since you were late joining us. The other point being made is that this is a documentary that reveals hateful views that are uncomfortable for people to listen to. They're unsettling and they're disturbing. And secondly, they're not the sort of views children or the young should be exposed to. And therefore, it's not a documentary for general release on television or general release on YouTube. How do you counter that viewpoint? Shobhade? We've lost the line to Shobhade. All right, I'm going to come back to Lalitha Kumaramangam. Lalitha, I'm going to put this to you. Venkaiah Naidu, a government minister and a very responsible one, has actually said that there is a conspiracy behind this film against India. What possible conspiracy could there be? Or are you prepared to accept that that's one level of argument that you don't accept?
Karan, I don't fully accept that level of argument, but perhaps his way of putting it was not quite the way I'm going to say something now. The fact is that, as I've already said, India's women are only portrayed as victims in this. And at one stage in the film, somebody does talk about, and that unfortunately, according to me, is actually an Indian who's supposed to be an expert, talk about Indian culture. It's not Indian culture, it's patriarchy that promotes this sort of unbridled use of violent power.
It's not an Indian, forgive me, it's not an expert who talks about Indian culture, it's one of the defending lawyers. It's one of the defending lawyers, and the defending lawyer says there is no room in Indian culture for a woman. So please get it right, Lalitha Kumaramangam. It's not an expert talking about Indian culture. It's one of the reprehensible lawyers who the documentary is showing up. That's the point of showing them up.
Karan, I'm not talking about what the lawyer says. Later on, towards the end of the film, there is a lady who says that this is Indian culture. Unfortunately, India promotes this sort of patriarchal mindset, not mindset.
I want to go back to Shobhade. We've got Shobhade. We've had terrible trouble with Shobhade's line. Let me go back to her while she's there. Okay. Shobhade, I want to put to you that question that you couldn't hear. Another reason people say for not showing this documentary is because it reveals and exposes extremely disturbing, unsettling views that are in fact difficult and uncomfortable for people to hear, and secondly, views that the young should not be exposed to. And therefore, this documentary shouldn't be shown on television, which everyone has access to. It shouldn't be shown on YouTube, which everyone has access to. It's clearly for an adult audience, not for a youth certificate young audience.
You know, I think we are underestimating the ability of the young of this country to analyze for themselves what is right and what is wrong. It's extremely condescending to think that they can't see for themselves, they can't hear and judge for themselves that what several men on that show have said is something that is appalling. That you simply cannot look at women in that light. You cannot talk about women in the terms that have been used. I don't think the young are going to emulate that. If anything, it will cause a sense of revulsion. And in any society, if we think that statements of that kind will make people create heroes out of those rapists, we are wrong. And I object to the word rape culture. I think we're insulting the word culture by equating it with rape.
Okay.
And I would really request all those activists who keep talking about rape culture of India, rape culture of India. This is not part of any culture. Rape is not part of any culture at all. So they are the ones who are misleading the young by constantly referring to rape culture.
I've only got 30 seconds. I want to ask you the last question. Do you believe that this ban actually is the ultimate insult to the Indian people, because it suggests that the government doesn't believe they're adult enough to receive this documentary with critical analysis of their own, that they don't have the mental faculties to be able to make a judgment of their own, and they need to be treated or infantilized like children. That's why the government has banned it. But you've got 20 seconds to answer.
Karan, not only is it an insult to our intelligence, but it's also an insult to our international image, the one which we are trying so hard to promote, because it shows that the government has no regard for freedom of expression. We are making a mockery of freedom of expression by attempting to ban something which everybody has seen anyway. It's converting ourselves into a joke, and it's about time the government rethought its position and allowed it to be seen, because that would show the confidence the government has not only in itself and its ability to do something about the situation, rather than to ban something which tells us a horrible truth about ourselves.
All right, I'm afraid I'm going to end it there. My apologies
Karan,
for the
I'd just like to say the last word, that freedom of expression is all very well, but responsible and ethical journalism is also equally important.
I'm afraid you're wrong in saying that this is not responsible and ethical journalism. The journalism here is unimpeachable. And in fact, one proof of that is that they've had the capacity to deliver from people who otherwise, because they're intelligent lawyers, would have censored themselves, testimony that now incriminates them. That's proof of good journalism, not a journalism lacking in ethics. My thanks to both my guests for joining me. Time for a break, but then